You're listening to the Paul Higgins Show, the place for ambitious tech consultants with purpose. After 18 years as a global sales leader and having a successful tech consulting exit, I'm sharing what's working now to transform emerging tech consultants worldwide into trusted consultants that attract the best clients and deliver measurable results. When you're ready to level up your clarity, results, and freedom, begin with the free Tech Consulting Blueprint available at techconsultantsblueprint.com. Amateurs play more than practice, and professionals practice more than they play. Hello, this is Paul Higgins, and welcome to episode 506 of my podcast. In today's solo show, I will talk about how to practice your sales calls to get higher sales conversions. Now, let's dive in. If you're a regular, you know I love my golf. I heard this quote on Sweet Spot podcast by Adam Young and John Sherman. It stopped me in my tracks for two reasons. One, for my golf, and the other was recent sales calls I reviewed for a client. And that quote was, amateurs play more than practice and professionals practice more than they play. It stopped me in my tracks, as I said. And quickly on the first, most amateur golfers lose 6 to 10 shots around from within 15 yards of the green. And I am certainly not an exception. I'm actually probably more the rule. I spend less than 5% of my limited practice time on it, relying instead of working it out on the course when I'm under pressure, and you know what normally happens. Especially those nasty chips that are around the green, they're normally in the thick rough, etc., and you just don't know how to play them. I now practice them and have reduced my handicap as a result. And whatever sport you play, you can draw a similar analogy, right? But really what we're going to do now is focus on sales. You might think the reason you aren't converting sales calls has something to do with external environment, the economy, competitors, whatever it is. But often, sadly, the true problem is how you are performing in a sales call. The time we practice sales is often in these sales calls. Once again, under pressure, unprepared, it normally doesn't go well. Let's be honest here. When was the last time you practiced a sales call not in a sales call itself? Be completely honest. For most of my clients, it is never. Crazy, right? Because it's the number one thing that's going to earn you more income, and you don't practice it. I had 18 years sales experience at Coca-Cola, and we had to still practice before a major call. It was in our DNA. It was our checklist. It's been like a pilot where you got a checklist on certain things you had to do. We had to role play it. We had to practice it beforehand. So how can you practice your sales calls to get those higher conversions? Well, I've come up with 5 simple ways to do it. So the first one is listen back. You should be recording your sales calls with permission, of course, from the person on the call, and most of the software actually automatically does that before they get on the call now. You can send an executive summary and a recording of the call to the prospective client, which is fantastic, so they can review it, they can share it, etc. I use Fathom.video. It's free, it's fantastic, and you can get some great tips by Richard White, who formerly was on the podcast, episode number 375. I know it's like nails on a chalkboard, right, when you listen back to yourself, but believe me, it's a great way to do it, and then you can self-diagnose. So that's the first one, where you can just do it yourself. The second is using a framework. So when you listen back, it helps you to have a framework to compare yourself to, right? Because otherwise it just becomes a whole, myriad of conversations that are in disparate places. You can score yourself on how well you implemented the framework, right? So I've got my framework, which I use for my clients, and I'll make it available to you. It'll be a link in the show notes, but just go to paulhigginsmentoring.com/sales call, and you'll get my free playbook, which gives you the framework of how to run a sales call for a tech consultant. So we've done learn yourself, we've done framework, which is sort of a bit of a, let's call it 1B, but I've called it number 2. Now, number 3 is team role plays. So you get a team member to help you by they be the acting prospect in a mock-up sales call, right? So you give them a brief before the role play, and then you have a debrief after the call. And once again, you do the call as if you would using whatever software you're using. I use Zoom and Fathom.video that I mentioned before, but you could be using whatever it is, a video conferencing tool and the recording tool, so that you're getting, first-hand experience of watching yourself, right? And then someone else can watch it, and often they can also look at it and think, oh, okay, there's different ways, or I didn't see ways in that I asked questions as well. So it works both ways. So we've got Learn Yourself, we've got the framework, we've got team role plays. The next one is peer role plays. And it's very similar, right? But you're just using peers. So who are some of those peers? It might be someone in a mastermind that you're part of. It might be someone in the community. So we run the Cloud Consultants Collective. And, you might just reach out to someone that you've had a great experience or a great conversation with them and ask them to do it, right? It doesn't really matter, but, on their experience, etc., but it does help if they're in our industry, right? And they'll give you a perspective and you can sort of learn from each other as well. The last one is expert role plays, right? So it's, similar to the concept of 3 and 4, except you're getting feedback from someone who does it for a living, right? So it's a paid service and that's what they do. They specifically do it. Now, I do that for my clients, as I said up front, but I've also got other people that I know that can do it as well. So if you want to learn more about that, just contact me directly. All the links are in the show notes. So in summary, you might think someone externally or something externally is impacting your low close rate, right? But the real truth of the problem is it may be closer to home, right? And unfortunately, it may be you. And how do you know if you don't practice it, right? And how do you know if you don't go back and analyze it? And I gave you 5 simple ways of doing this. One is self, which is learning it. The second is looking at those recordings. The third is through a team member doing role plays. Fourth is peers doing role plays. And then the fifth is a paid service where an expert comes and does a role play with you. The bottom line is professionals practice more than they play, as per the quote up front. So what I want you to do is practice more than you're playing. Don't rely just being on the sales call and all that pressure of getting it right. Now, there's a link to the sales call playbook that I mentioned to help give you a framework for this. So go to paulhigginsmentoring.com/sales call, one word, sales call. The link will be in the show notes as well. Ready, set, go. See you next time on the Solo Show for more ways to scale faster, live better. Time for action. Subscribe, comment, and let me know what you like best about this episode. Plus, get your exclusive show extras and growth action guides for subscribers only. Visit techconsultantsblueprint.com.